And Mary, you guys keeping in line? Thank you.
Hey, Scott. Scott. Mike,
All right.
hold the meeting.
We will call the meeting to order at 7:01. We'll start with roll call.
Hey, Mayor Benny.
Here.
Brenneman.
Here.
Kill.
Here.
Monahan.
Here.
Glanzer. Here. Nelson.
Here.
And Jones.
Here. All right, do we have motions to approve the agenda?
So moved. Or I'll make a motion, I guess.
That's fine.
Ben, either way.
Yep, do we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes from 12/3/2019.
I'll make a motion to approve minutes from 12/3. Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, next up, we got bills submitted for payment. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion approved.
Bills. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay,
You got me.
discussion, questions? I hear none. Lyon?
Yeah.
Jones?
Yes.
Brenneman?
Yes.
Keel?
Yes.
Cleanser? And Nelson?
Yes.
Alright, move on to the public input on any non-agenda items. Anybody from the public to talk about any non-agenda items tonight? None? We're gonna quick move down, we're at 7:03 at this point, so we're gonna move down to second reading of ordinance 681, which is the 2019 supplemental appropriation.
Since our first reading, which was 2 meetings ago, there's only been 2 changes to it. I reviewed the budget after Karen finished putting in all the bills for this month, just to ensure that we had enough to, in each budget item. And they're just, like I said, the 2 changes. There's an additional $144 going under the recreation department, and that's because we had a workman's comp insurance bill come through. Every year, we always gotta send in an estimate of what we believe the work comp's gonna be, and then we get the actual, and it's either we owe it a little bit more, we, get a credit. Well, this year, we owe it a little bit more, that gets to split between all the departments, so that made this run a little bit behind. And then the other one, on there is, we had, that final payout for the sports complex grading that I wasn't sure of the amount on, so that's another about $6,600 that we're short in that bill.
Make a motion to approve second reading ordinance 681, 2019 supplemental appropriations with the 2 changes that Teresa noted.
Second.
Motion and second, we have discussion. None. We'll vote. Keel?
Yes.
Cleanser? Nelson?
Yes.
Monahan?
Yeah.
Jones?
Yes.
Yes. Perfect, we are now at 7:05, so move to 7:05 public hearing on Landmark Road Project, review assessment roll. We've also got the resolution 2019-18, the direct assessment for street curb, gutter, and sidewalks. Alright. Discussion on this.
So basically, the roll shows all the property that are along the Vandermark project. It shows how much footage they have for each property. It also shows if they're a corner lot, if they got any of that break, that 25-foot corner break, according to our assessment policy. And then the calculated costs of the improvement. The street and the sidewalk, the street was over $100 already, so if you add that sidewalk to it, you're definitely over $100. So everything's capped at $100. So basically the highlighted amount is at $100 a linear foot, and that's what each property owner would owe for that. The ones that got sidewalk on top of the street definitely are getting a better break because, you know, they're capped at $100. And everything did get sidewalk except for the two undeveloped properties, which would be Knapp's Landing and Roger Howe goes to the south there. We discussed this at our last meeting, but it's at the, you know, if they do wanna go into a payment plan, they have until next October to pay the city, and then anything unpaid will be sent to the county. They have a 10-year payment plan at 10% interest, so that's what resolution 2019-18 would do.
Alright, so to recap that, because I think there were some questions on that, basically, when this gets sent in, they would have until October of 2020 to pay in full, do anything you need to do there. If after October 2020 had a balance and wanted to basically run that through the city or through your property taxes, then you could.
Right.
At what again? How many years?
It's 10% interest per year for 10 years. And at any time during this, it can be paid off early. You know, that you can, you know, during this year, you can pay the full amount, you can pay the partial amount. If once it gets sent to the county, once again, too, you can pay the full amount or partial. You can, you know, pay that off at any time you want.
I'm sorry, I missed the line about the county what?
So after October 1st of next year, 2020,
Right.
if you have any unpaid balance, then that gets sent to the county and they'll collect that with your taxes that you owe every year. So each year, at the beginning of the year, you'll get a bill from the county for this assessment for that 1 year with any interest due.
And if
So,
it's,
so is there some billing paperwork that shows up?
Yep, they'll send that to you. Yep, you'll get,
And prior to October, is there some paperwork that shows up billing wise or?
so after we pass this, basically I send out the roll again to you, recapping that this is the plans you can do. And so this roll that you got originally sent to you shows your amount due, that's gonna be your bill. And like I said, you can come into City Hall anytime before October of next year to pay part of it, pay all of it. You can come in once a month and pay some, you know, that's up to you.
it's it's interest-free until you submit it
To the county.
to the county.
Yeah, so between now and October of next year, it's interest-free. But once that, if you have any balance and we send it to the county, that's when interest starts accruing, yeah.
That's a good clarification.
That's pretty, yeah.
And I wanna bring it up now, we maybe normally covered under your report, Mitch, but maybe it's been talked about or not. Before the meeting, they mentioned is there a crack up in one of the sidewalks up there, up near T-Box by the fence there, if I remember right, but it sounded like do you remember seeing that or seeing that on any of the reports or anything there?
A crack, you say?
A crack in the sidewalk?
No, I don't know of any up there, but that doesn't mean that there might not be a panel that cracked up there that needs to get repaired. Usually during the spring, we'll go through and look for those types of cracks and repairs that need to happen as part of the warranty inspection, so we'll sure be looking at it then, I guess.
Okay. How long's the warranty on the sidewalks?
1 year.
1 year?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, yeah, because there might be more over the winter. And
That's right,
spring,
yeah.
Check on that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Same thing applies to curbs
Yep.
also, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Perfect.
Is this not the project that the debate was about the sidewalks? And what project was that?
Don't give them the door to walk through. You give them an opportunity,
What do you mean?
Well, I thought there,
That was
that was Memphis.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say what. I was told.
Because the street assessment was escrow, but not the sidewalk.
Oh.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, we talked
And
about
then we
it,
updated
you
policy
two guys' pet project, so I get them confused.
Oh, boy.
yeah, and then like
That
we
was
said, we
Memphis that we were talking about as
Oh, yeah.
far as the sidewalk.
yeah, because we had money escrowed for the street, so there's no street
Yeah.
assessment, but not for the sidewalk. Yeah.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any more discussion? Come on up.
Don Severson with Knapp's Landing. Just wondering, my sidewalk gets paid for, doesn't get paid for? What's the scoop on that?
That's a good question.
Goes to the other side of the streets got paid for?
And your sidewalk right up along the edge of your development there, you're saying?
Coming up, man,
From the bad mark there? Okay.
So he's one of the undeveloped properties, so there's no sidewalk put in with this project, like I said. And we did in the, anything that was developed, so like across the street from him there was, and so basically an undeveloped property, once he sells lots and somebody puts up a home, they will be required to put in a sidewalk, just like if you bought a lot here in town, an empty lot, you're required to put in sidewalks. I think what Don's referring to is that, since we didn't put it in with this project, which, like we did with the developed properties, the ones that are developed actually got a break, which they did. They've got a, kind of a break with the sidewalk in it, so. I'm assuming that's,
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's right, it's gonna cost me $28 a foot plus the $100 a foot. Or it's gonna cost the landowner for that lot owner when they develop it.
So our wording in there for that policy basically specifies whether it's developed or undeveloped. And at the time, it was undeveloped, is that right?
so there's no wording in our assessment policy about developed or undeveloped land, just that if improvements are made,
Yeah,
how much it's gonna cost.
and we typically have been putting them on developed properties because they come and disturb the site and build their house, and we're worried about that getting damaged during that time, I guess. We did the same thing on Nicholson with the Jardine development,
Well, the grades can change too, can't they?
yeah, a little bit. I mean, that's why we've never gone and built them on the undeveloped properties, because we just always it's always been the expectation that the home builder will come build those.
Yeah, 'cause like on Mickelson, there was none done on Jardines, addition there, and there is an empty lot in Kelly Point, so that stretch where that empty lot is, there's no sidewalk there, 'cause it'll be put in with the homeowner.
Sure.
Basically, it's costing me 25% more for my curb and gutter in the street.
More than if you already had it developed 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 or 100 years ago. So it's not costing you more necessarily, it's just.
Well, yeah, it's
maybe if
costing,
you compare.
It's costing us the same.
depends on how you look at it. It's costing me the same for curb and gutter and asphalt as it is the other side of the street for curb, gutter, asphalt, and sidewalk.
Yeah, but just to play devil's advocate though, if the city changes their policy to put sidewalk in undeveloped land, and then the land never gets developed, and you cut a $28 break, the first time we do that, and that land's not developed, we've spent taxpayer money on sidewalk on undeveloped land. Ultimately, that's the taxpayer dollar. And the cap is to incentivize street projects. The cap incentivizes that street getting done to your development. Without that cap, Justin would have had to go door to door and say, we'll just put the project together, and instead of a $100 cap, it would have been $140. And then that street might not have got done.
Maybe not.
Or the city would have passed a resolution to do it, and 51% of the footage, property owners would have came out and voted it out. And then you'd have a gravel road to your development.
I'm not complaining about the road by any means. I just don't think it's quite, when I'm this close to having that ground developed, I just don't feel it's quite right that it's costing me 25 to 30% more than it's costing the other side of the street. My opinion.
Well, it'll cost, whoever buys the lot, builds a house, will have to put the sidewalk in.
Right.
The sidewalk doesn't have to go in until the house is built.
Right, I understand that.
But that's no different than a house right now, in central Hartford, on a bare lot, that doesn't have a sidewalk.
But you're not doing anything with them lots.
Well, somebody's doing something with them.
Yeah, but there's houses in Hartford that doesn't have curb and gutter in. There's all kinds of houses, streets that don't have sidewalk in.
I'm trying to wrap my brain around how it's costing you more money, 25% more.
Everybody, you're paying $100 a foot.
So are you.
Yep,
But we're not getting sidewalk.
but I don't have sidewalk.
We're gonna have to pay, the landowner's gonna.
I'm either gonna pay for it or I'm going to have
So
to.
you have potential property owners that are going, well, you should include the sidewalk in the sale of this lot.
Sidewalks on the other side of the
Is
road.
there a precedent that they're referencing when they're telling you that?
No,
So of course, they're
Well-
trying to get something for nothing. Because you can't buy a lot. Tell me another development where they're looking at lots in your price range that includes sidewalk.
I'm not saying there is. I'm just saying with me being, if the road wouldn't have been tore up for 2 years, I'd have had houses when that street got done.
How about the lot we have sold that's on Vandermark? Are they grandfathered in to have the sidewalk done? It's sold already.
They're not on the rolls.
They'll have to put a sidewalk in when they build.
Right, but.
Yeah,
should be
we
able to-
understand that.
Yeah, we do.
I guess we
understand.
just, you're kind of in a gray area here in my mind.
Well, I don't know, I mean, Jardines paid for the road, and then the homeowners had to pay for the sidewalk when they did that. So, it's really the same, I guess I'm seeing it the same way as,
Okay,
as if that in 5 years, the cost to pave might be 125.
might be 90.
Yeah, good luck. Your lots are going down here, right?
They might, if
Yeah.
they don't sell,
They might,
they're gonna go
yeah,
down, yeah.
But construction won't.
Yeah.
But I guess that's kind of the way I look at it is pay for it now, pay for it later, somebody's gonna do it. I mean, when I built a house in Hartford, I had to pay for a sidewalk. And you know.
I guess what my point is, for the $100 a foot, I'm getting less value than what you're getting, Charlie.
Yeah, sure.
And you have to agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
He also lived on an undeveloped street for how many years before that?
Yeah.
And had you started your development 5 or 10 years ago, people would have had the opportunity to live on an undeveloped street for that many years, and then maybe they would have got a sidewalk. They probably would have enjoyed the developed street more.
Had I not started the development, it would probably still be a gravel street.
There you go. We'll give you that one.
I think I got the
Nothing for
footage,
that.
and it wouldn't have passed.
Right. But, yeah, I don't know, I think there's, yeah, I understand why you see it as a gray area, but I don't see that there's,
There's no precedent.
otherwise it ends up looking like, well, we're gonna favor this one, and then we're not gonna do it this time, and we're gonna do it this time. I mean, it's just,
I think it opens the door if we change the verbiage to developments, trying to ultimately it'd be at the city's expense to put sidewalks in undeveloped developments. And I don't know how you do that.
well, on the other side of that is the cost benefit of doing it is when you're putting the street in, is to get that all done in one fell swoop, but if you get construction vehicles up and down and over those sidewalks and things
Oh, I understand
everything
that.
like that, they're shot anyway, you know. So,
I just, like I said, I don't think I'm getting the same value as the people on the other side of the street are getting. No matter how you look at it.
Almost like
I
you're getting double
wouldn't-
payment for the sidewalk in my mind. When
I
we're
wouldn't
paying
argue,
and the
I wouldn't
landlord's
argue that
paying
you're
that.
not getting the value.
Right.
We all paid $100. Yeah, I did happen to get sidewalk and part of
Right,
that.
and then the homeowner's gonna have to pay again.
but when you purchased your home, you purchased a house without sidewalks in it. You may have paid more for that house if it had a developed street and a sidewalk in it.
I'm sure it
So
would.
I think you got value, and I think you're getting value, and I think folks that got their sidewalks right now are getting value, because we're not charging the full amount.
Correct.
Yeah, the project that cost $140 a foot, so the city is taking on a cost, so everybody's getting a break, you know, just, you're gonna make.
I think I got my sidewalk for yeah, I mean, if you look at it that way, you got it for free, and what you're saying is you're not gonna get your sidewalk for free.
And I'm paying just about full value on my street. If the street figures out to 111, I'm paying 100 on it.
Well, ultimately Travis saved $39 a foot, and you only saved $11 a foot, but you're both saving.
Well, yeah,
You're making an argument that you're spending more, and you're really not, you're just not,
I'm not getting the same value.
you're just not gaining as much as Travis.
I'm not getting.
But you're both winning.
I'm not denying that.
Yeah.
I'm not denying
You're
that.
both winning.
Yeah.
He's just winning more.
The value isn't equal.
Well, he's just winning more. But you're both
He's a
winning.
loser, come on.
All right, well.
Where do you want that West Street to go through? I'd say at 4 o'clock in the morning when I'm blowing snow, I'll remember that I'm a loser. On my sidewalk.
I'm just kidding, Travis.
All right, any more discussion?
We get a motion on this, Bill?
Yeah,
Oh,
we need a motion on the resolution.
Okay, wait a minute. Did we not already get one? We had a motion in a second?
You asked for discussion, and I don't think we ever got a motion.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
I don't have any.
I didn't get one either.
We're all sitting there going,
Okay.
I'd make a motion to approve resolution number 2019-18 and the accompanying roll.
Second. Any more discussion?
Brenneman?
Yeah.
Jones?
Yes.
Monahan?
Yeah.
Keel?
Yeah.
Lanzer?
And Nelson.
No.
All right, we've got first reading of ordinance 683. And then fence regulations.
yes.
First reading, this is the one that gives some more specifics on our fences.
Right, so this has gone through the planning and zoning, board, we've talked about 3, maybe 4 times here now. I asked them to look at our fence regulations, just because I don't think they're very specific enough as far as the materials that kind of started it that can be used. Over the years, we've had several questionable materials, we've got fences made out of pallet, chicken wire, just plastic sheets hung over wire. I mean, that they're calling a fence. And our current regulations, basically, as far as materials, the only thing they really ever reference is that no barbed wire in residential. So it doesn't really call on what can be used, what can't be used. So hence, we've generated a few complaints throughout the years, and I think we maybe just need to be a little more specific with it. So I started this with the planning and zoning board. They reviewed our current regulations. I just come up with some suggested wording. They reviewed that and made some tweaks to it, adjustments to it. And that's basically what's in your packet right now. I included the clean version of the resolution, and then behind that, the next one is the changes shown, and those are highlighted. Really, the only sections we've changed is section B, and that's where it talked about having barbed wire fence. Here, we just kind of elaborated on that a little bit more and said that electrical or anything dangerous can't be put up. And that you can have barbed wire in industrial land, heavy industrial, and NRC, since that's essentially ag land. And that was added by the Planning and Zoning Board to have barbed wire in NRC. Section C basically calls out the materials, and we list some of the materials, but we reference that it has to be a material that is customarily used for fencing, so can't be pallets, you know, whatnot. And then there is also a line added at the end that says that if you have another material, maybe there's something else out there, something new or whatever, they can come before the board to have them reviewed and see if it's acceptable or not. So kind of gives them an out there. And then as we reviewed our fence regulations, the only other changes were down in section K. We added the last sentence that kind of talks about finding the property pins, saying the city can assist with that, but we won't guarantee that. That's the same wording that's in our actual application, so we thought we'd include it with our regulations. And then we took out the old section K, which references going onto people's property and reading meters. Taxes can't interfere with that. Well, we don't go onto people's property anymore to read meters, it's all automatic, so that's not good, so we omitted that. So, like I said, this was after they looked through it, this is what they're sending to you with the recommendation. Any questions, comments?
Make a motion for first reading of ordinance 683.
Second.
Nowhere here does it encompass trash enclosures.
No. And we did talk about that a little bit at P and Z meeting. Most things that would take a trash enclosure, like a commercial property or a multifamily, that's usually handled through the conditional use process. And that's how we've been handling it most of the years. They talked about leaving it on that, because if you be real specific right here, what might be good for one property might not be for another property, depending on how they set up the property. You may want, instead of just chain link with slats through it, you may want concrete or something. I mean, that they thought kind of depended on the property, so that's why they thought they'd leave that with the conditional use process.
Chris, I got a question under F. Says fences no more than 8 feet, this is CC and RC.
Mm-hmm.
Fences no more than 8 feet in height may be allowed in a second front yard when set back a minimum of 10 feet from the property line. What is a second front yard?
So that's this, if you have a side yard that's against another street. So basically it's corner lots. So your front yard on a corner lot is the one it's addressed off of. The second front yard is basically the other side that has the street going by it.
And you can have an 8-foot fence as long as it's set back 10 feet from the property line?
In these districts, yeah.
Is it set back from the street address side 10 feet, or is it set back 10 feet on the other front yard?
The other front yard. The second. Not the address side, it'd be the other street.
So what's the purpose of setting it back 10 feet?
I think it's mainly for visibility.
Visibility.
On intersections, yeah. Because on those corner lots, we have bigger setbacks.
So why does it say second front yard instead of corner lot?
The way CCOG worded it, basically. I mean, you could word it as a corner lot, but
I mean,
CCOG worded it.
The reason I ask is there a definition for second front yard?
Yes.
I've never.
Yeah, there is.
Is that the unaddressed side? Is that what
Yep.
they mean?
Yeah, it's in our zoning regulations there. Because they reference that as far as, for the actual setbacks of a building, they'll say the front yard and then the second front yard on corner lots.
Really?
And that's as like,
Or it's the address or the non-addressed side.
Right.
So I would have a second front yard.
Yep. Kelly, is
Yeah.
your front yard,
Right.
and your second is Second Street.
Interesting, did not know that.
We gotta look at the district too, it's community commercial and
Yeah.
RC.
Which is regional commercial, so
Yeah.
that's even a next level higher, so.
So your second, you have a corner lot there, and you have storefronts on the address side as well as the non-address side, the
Yep.
second front yard.
Yep, good.
Alright, I was just curious.
And that we didn't change any verbiage on, but that's what it means.
Okay. Now I know, and I'll forget tonight.
Anything else to motion and second?
Who's in charge of enforcing those conditions in a conditional use permit?
Well, Paul, when he goes and inspects the property, is supposed to make sure that they're, the conditions are met, because they get the conditional use when they build it, so when he's building it, he should ensure that those are met.
Where I'm headed with this is we got some people who aren't in compliance in my world.
That we'll probably end up with, yeah.
In my opinion.
Sure.
But anyway, make a motion to approve.
Already had
We have a
Sorry.
motion, so.
Sorry to approve. I call the vote.
There you go.
I will vote. Keel?
Yes.
Clancy?
Yes.
Nelson?
Yes.
Brenneman?
Yes.
Jones?
Yep.
Monahan?
Yeah.
Alright, next up. Review approved resolution 2019-19 for SRF funding for Western Avenue Sewer Project.
So this resolution was drafted by Meyer Henry. As you know, our sewer project that's gonna go along Western Avenue next year, the state has approved us to get a SRF loan with it. Well, that loan is gonna be financed through revenue bonds. So basically, this needs to be passed by the city in order to go out and get those revenue bonds. Meyer Henry is gonna market them for the
Make a
state.
motion to approve resolution 2019-19.
Second. Discussion. None? Nelson?
Yes.
Lanzer?
Yes.
Keel?
Yes.
Brenneman?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Monahan?
Yeah.
Alright. Moving to reports, yeah. Chief Schumacher. Fire Department report.
Good evening, Mayor, councilors. Just to recap, I got a couple months for you to catch up on here. October, slow month, unusual month for us, only 13 total calls in the month, so I think everybody was wondering what was going on. With 4 of those in Hartford. From a training perspective, EMS side, we trained on pediatric cardiac arrest. Fire side, we worked through pump operations with all of our trucks. We also had 3 members attend state EMS conference. Each of those members got about 20 hours of additional EMS training at that conference. November, a little bit back to normal, had 27 calls in November, 11 of those in Hartford. Training side, EMS, we worked on airway emergencies. Fire side, we did some pre-planning with what we consider high-risk structures within the city. Sat down with Teresa, Paul Clark, and Brian Goff, what was it, last week, talked about implementation of the lock boxes within the city of Hartford. The fire department has placed its order for the keys and lock boxes. Still working with Knox to get the final setup in place for purchases by those required and those who voluntarily want to do that. So hopefully shortly after the first of the year, we're ready to officially roll that out to the community. The other thing I really wanted to touch on came after a question probably about a month ago as far as new development within the city of Hartford. And we've had questions at times, hey, if this goes in, hey, can the fire department handle it? I know we had it with Ike's 3-story apartment building, and what I really wanted to get across to you guys as a city council here is I don't want you holding up development based on what you think we can do, what you think we can handle as a department. Our role is to evolve and grow with the city, not be an encumbrance to the growth of the city. The only other thing I have that I want to touch base with you guys on is something I'd like you to consider in the future. We saw this fall and kind of discovered in talking with Teresa, the fire pit ordinance in Hartford. The ordinance as it's laid out does not prohibit the burning of leaves in a fire pit. It states, I believe it's wood products, natural wood products, so as long as they have a fire pit covered in the proper location, they can burn leaves. We had multiple calls in Hartford, people burning leaves, and it's not a clean burn. You have neighborhoods covered in smoke and haze. So I would ask that you probably consider looking into that ordinance and decide if you feel that's appropriate in the city of Hartford or not.
That's a good one to bring up.
Otherwise, that's all I have. Any questions on my end?
Did you guys get a call about somebody burning leaves?
Yeah, we responded several times in town here.
Cause it looks like old neighborhoods on fire.
Pretty much, yep.
Yeah.
So how'd you handle that when you got there?
Oh, I know.
Well, Well, we worked with the homeowner, we did extinguish it, kind of explained that, hey, we have this smoke haze everywhere in the area, not a good practice. Although it's not against policy, we did convince them to put it out.
Okay. Any rhubarb on that, just out of curiosity? I mean, I gotta go to that side of the fence. They're all
They're
compliant?
compliant, yeah.
Okay.
But I think, we'll say to put more teeth into it, if the city does prohibit it.
No kidding. When people are burning leaves, it literally looks like the entire block is on fire. So when the fire department rolls up in a truck, even though it's not in ordinance, the residents are more than willing to comply because it looks like a,
Well, I got
it's a fire.
You know why? Because I'm one of them that did it, and I didn't know that. I did throw a pile of leaves on
Did the-
one time. So
Did
I'm
the
guilty.
fire department show up at your house?
No, they didn't, because I didn't put many on. They didn't put many on. If Brian would have showed up at my house, I would have shut up and did exactly what he said.
I mean a fire.
You had one over by you, Mark, on the
I
side.
know exactly where it was.
That's good, I'm glad you're bringing it up.
After the first time I threw a pile of leaves in there, I realized that that was not a good thing to do.
Mhm.
So I admit guilt and didn't do it again.
Well, it isn't bad when the leaves are dry,
Yeah.
or as bad.
Yeah, it's still a mess. So Scott, what you're saying is you're trainable?
My hearing aid broke, say again?
What you're saying is you're trainable?
I trained myself on that one, yeah, so, yeah, I am.
That's right up there with dry Christmas trees. They do a little worse.
Christmas trees burn a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
Quicker.
All right, I don't think we have any more questions. Thank you. That's a
Thank
good
you.
report. Thank you. All right, move over to Jesse, the Chamber of Economic Development report.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I've been in the office for the last 10 days, been glad to see the city still intact and growing and prosperous, so all the stress and anxiety was for naught, so thank you for that. Well, I joke, but it was great to be away for a little bit and come back to a welcoming home. But in your packet is my report for the month of November. Any questions for me?
You probably can't go into detail on, so you had ongoing communications on Coronet, Champion, so on and so forth. Obviously, I know what Coronet is. And I know you can't go in, because these are from development, right?
These are project leads.
Okay. From the state.
No, so
Okay.
most of them are local.
Okay. All right. Sometime I'd like to hear more about Washington and Spirit and all that kind of stuff. Not right now, but yeah. I didn't know what those were.
Yeah, starting a new trend of president's names, so you'll be seeing
Okay.
more of those. hopefully.
Some good ones there. Caboose.
Caboose, yes. There's a lot. That's what I do with my time all day. I just sit up and make up names for projects.
Trying to think of catchy names.
Next time you wanna put that one at the end.
Yeah, I think that'd be a better idea. Yeah, I do a prospect report. Scott, I do a prospect report at the first business meeting of the month for the Development Foundation. It's typically for board members only that have signed confidentiality agreements. But if for city council, if they wanted to come, if they would sign a confidentiality agreement, I'd be happy to discuss those projects in more detail.
Okay.
One thing to touch on too, really quick, before we go on to the next portion, is we hired NCDS, National Community Development Services, to come to Hartford in November, and they conducted a interview with about 40 different businesses and individuals that we consider stakeholders. Their final report came back last night, and it should be in your email. And so I would encourage you to take a few minutes to read through that. It's about a 30-page report with a couple of appendices at the end, or appendices at the end. The president of the company will be at our foundation meeting on Friday at the Stomping Grounds at 7:30 to present it to us and take any questions that we might have. So I would encourage you to read that report. Come to our meeting on Friday. If you're coming, please let us know in advance in case you need to issue an open meeting notice. But I think it'd be beneficial for you as a city council to be there to hear that report.
I'll be there on Friday.
Plan to attend also.
Okay.
you wanna tackle, I've got one thing on your report and an email you sent out earlier today. But let's tackle, you got an action item on there to attend the governor's office conference in tourism?
I do, with, in the past, didn't really see a lot of value in this conference, but with the I-90 Speedway opening up now and with the hotel trying to gain traction and the brewery growing, I think it'll be beneficial for us to focus more on tourism as a growth industry for Hartford to consider.
Any motions to approve that?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second it for discussion.
Discussion. Hear none? Brennan?
Yeah.
Jones?
Yes.
Monahan?
Yeah.
Keel?
Yes.
Cleanser?
Yes.
And Nelson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. One of the things I wanna touch on and kind of adding on to Jesse's report a little bit here is there's been some conversations between, basically the landowner on the southeast side of First and, right, see look over there. We sold that, part of that parcel to the elevator back in 2016. There's been some discussion since then about selling it back to the city. And, actually, some of what they're looking at is, when we sold it to them, we sold it for $3.66 a square foot. And it was 9,600 square feet, it was only just that front corner piece there, where the building stands and everything right there. The rest of it that they owned, that moved back all the way back to their office and kind of some back in that area there. They've got a total of about 25,000 square feet there, and they seem to be, would be interested, if we'd be interested, in selling that whole 25,000 back to the city for basically the same price, $3.70 a square foot, but it's more square feet, right? It's, you know,
You're talking about the elevator, the corner on the,
yep, that corner on the elevator there.
did you look that up? Cause I didn't know we sold that by the square foot, I thought we just sold that for a.
We probably
Per lot.
It's just.
We did, we just a dollar amount.
Just
So
to try to
it
compare
was,
apples.
it was broke down into footage so they could put a price on their other land.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
Correct. Yep. Yep. Yeah, cause it looks like their purchase price was, I don't know why the 181, but 35,181 is what they bought it from the city for back in 2016. Now, there's considerably more land there, because it would be the rest of it that they own that kind of finishes off that block. It's about 25,700 square feet. Price comes out at 95, basically 95,000. So when you break it out by square foot, it's virtually the same. Which, nobody's asking for any, not necessarily asking for any decisions, but kind of looking for a general feel from the council on whether to continue any of that discussion there. Look for a purchase agreement, any of those kind of things, because, it's an opportunity to basically get some of that land that we had sold back and help that downtown development area develop probably a much, I'm just gonna say a much better looking way and maybe more opportunity there than kind of a grounding area for fences and supplies and things like that, so. Good.
Do we wanna go on discussion on this, or you just wanna bring it to our?
Questions, bring it to your attention, want your
I'm
general
trying to
feel
get a
on some of those.
visualization of, if I understood you correctly, which, once again, the four-quarter on a hearing aid, it doesn't work.
Yeah, okay.
The wires. Okay. So how much farther south is that from what we sold them initially?
About 3 lots.
The north 3 lots is what we initially sold them.
Okay.
And you can see the lot lines.
1, 2, 3,
But
thank you.
there must be another 4 or 5 in there, south of that. What's in there, 8 lots?
Thank you.
Oh, there is 8, yep, there's 8.
So so we'd be getting our 3 back plus them selling us 5 more.
Yep.
It must go clear down to
Goes
that
down.
makeshift driveway that goes through there.
Yep, it does.
Just what do you, knowing that parameter, what's the first thing that comes to mind for you in that perimeter size lot?
You know,
Space.
I have a prospect for the corner there. I think in the immediate time, which I would say need to be in the next 5 years, that's a great spot for a prospect. Over the next 5 years, you can use the land to the south there for a number of different uses. You could have some sort of plaza there. Parking could be there. Long term, depending on the elevator's plans, that land could be used in a number of different ways.
Yeah.
Mostly for commercial activity.
I would think so, yeah. And last question I have is, why is the elevator, considering or wanting to sell that now?
They might have a number of reasons. I mean, I think it may not be as useful to them as it was back in 2016.
Okay.
I think
I think it's a good thing.
I think the intention when it was sold, was there was some discussion about them building a new office.
Oh,
If memory serves me correctly,
yes.
Yep, that's what they indicated.
since that didn't happen.
Okay.
I think it's a good thing too. I mean, I don't think that these opportunities come up very often, especially on a highly visible corner lot right there that has some potential for activity. So, it's not an agenda item now for any motions, but kind of just looking for a general feel if we were to go ahead and get some sort of purchase agreement or get something in place that we can get in front of the council to get it approved. What are your thoughts on some of that?
Absolutely, yes.
What's the time frame, Jeremy?
You know, I think that they have some, it may not hurt us to do this. Sure. Now, with the end of the year coming up and different things that can happen, probably it won't hurt us to move quick before the offer doesn't exist anymore.
Are they open to a closing? Yeah, we can. Closing would have to be in 2020.
Yeah, it never get done this year.
I think we need to do some due diligence on the environmental status of that land too before making the transaction official.
Can we just put it on the agenda for the next meeting?
I don't think it hurts to put it on there for the next meeting, but then also if we are able to get things moving quicker than that, to even consider a special meeting, if it had to be.
I think the fiscal year will end in February, I think.
Is it?
Well, there's this,
I think they're going off Fulton, but I think that's when after they merged a year ago, I think they're, I think
I
it's
just,
February, if I remember.
right. I mean, I drove by it a million times, but I just like looking at them daylight to see how they go. Because when you drive by, you don't really size up the property, because it's always been what it has been, so.
How far does it go past the barber shop?
Say again?
Does it go past the barber shop?
about 4 lots.
Four more lots past the
It
barber?
goes right down to that telephone pole that's at the corner there, or
So that whole
the fire
block,
hydrant right
or
there.
half block?
It would be a half block. Yeah, I'd really just like to size it up in the trailer. See if it can wait.
We'll tell you what, that gives us some direction on it, and, gives us kind of a way to move forward.
What did you say the price, $3 a foot? 367?
367. It comes at 95,000 even, basically, what it said.
Maybe in the interim, we can start working with them to work on language and what it might look like in the future. And perhaps starting the process on the environmental assessment. That's about a minimum 6-week process.
What makes think there's environmental problems?
I don't know for a fact. There could be a possibility that there might have been in the past, and any financial institution will do their due diligence when authorizing or when financing a business to build. If there's any risk that that land might be contaminated in any shape, way, or form, it'll make development impossible.
Just because it's associated with the co-op?
not the co-op, but what might have happened there in the past. So for example, let's say that there was some sort of chemical spill there in the past that's recorded, then that recording is in a database somewhere. So what a phase 1 or phase 2 does is that it looks through these databases and issues a final report that either says the land is buildable or developable, or says that the land is contaminated and what actions need to take place. For example, let's say if you're buying a lot from an individual that might have had a buried tank.
There was a tank there.
No, allegedly.
I didn't know there was.
Yeah, I don't know, I mean, Terry Egan, the historian, is not here right now, so I don't know what it was in 1947.
Again,
Duck worked at the.
what matters in the situation is what's in the database.
Yep.
That's what matters in these assessments.
I appreciate you bringing that to the council's attention.
You want to know what's in the database, not what is alleged.
You know, I'd like to know both.
Yeah.
I'd like to know allegedly what's in the database.
I agree.
Alright.
You can file that under one of your caboose names.
I don't remember what building it was behind them.
Alleged.
Alright,
I think we took 5 of them out.
thank you. Alright, we'll keep moving forward. Anything else under Jesse's report? Okay, move on. Mitch?
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have anything in particular on the report that I want to point out unless you guys had specific questions on the report, but we've got a number of action items to get through here. Any questions on the report? Okay. We'll move on to the action items. The first action item is approval of our engineering contract for 2020 force account services. You have a copy of that in your packets. This is pretty much the same force account agreement that we had last year, with new rates for the year, and I know our rates increased about 2.7% from last year. So is there any questions on force account agreement? Remember, this is an agreement basically to do all the day-to-day stuff, cost estimates, plan reviews, attend meetings like this, and those sorts of things.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the Stockwell Engineering contract for 2020 force account services.
Second.
Discussion? Alright, Brennan?
Yeah.
Jones?
Yes.
Monahan?
Yeah.
Lanzer? Nelson?
Yes.
And Keel?
Yes. Okay. Moving on to change order number 3 for Vandermark Avenue project with Suka. So we had final payment tonight on both these projects for Vandermark and Nicholson. This change order number 3 is a final change order to basically zero out the quantities. This is a unit price contract, so we've underrun some of the quantities out there on the project, and we ran them about $11,000 or $11,200, which is the value of this change order. So we would recommend approving the change order prior to approving the final payment.
Motion approved, change order number 3. Vandermark project.
Second.
Discussion? Vote? Keel?
Yes.
Lanzer? Nelson?
Yes.
Monahan?
Yeah.
Jones?
Yes.
Brennan?
Yeah.
Okay, the next item should be final pay app for Vandermark Avenue. We've been out to the site, we talked at last meeting, all the punch list items are complete. We had a couple items that came up late last week, and the contractors already got those completed. But at this point, everything's complete on the project, all punch list items, so we would recommend you make final payment to the contractor. a final pay application amount in the amount of $148,630.89.
Motion approved. Pay application approved. Second.
Discussion? Vote. Nelson?
Yes.
Hunter? Keel?
Yes.
Brennan?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Monahan?
Okay. So that'll effectively close out Vandermark with Silka. We will still have some work on our part with record drawings and things of that sort that we're following up with. The next action item should be change order number 3 for Nicholson Road. So the same thing here, we had, again, it's a unit price contract. This change order number 3 balances out the contract with them. We underran the project by $81,400. So you see that as a credit on the contract. So we recommend approval of change order number 3.
I'll make a motion to approve change order number 3 on the road project.
Second.
Discussion? Monahan?
Yeah.
Jones?
Yes.
Yep. Keel?
Yes.
Cleansor? And Nelson?
Yes.
Okay, and moving on to final pay app number 16 and final for Nicholson Road in the amount of $290,719.03. The last meeting we discussed to remove the liquidated damages from the contract, so we all agreed to that. That's removed from this contract. So again, this will close out the contract with Silka Construction in this project with your approval.
I'll make a motion to approve final 18th pay request for Nicholson Road project.
Second.
And that'll be it. You want your Mickelson Road?
For Silka, state contract,
Yeah.
Was it 18? I think I said
A
that.
long time. Martin, you feel good about that?
16, excuse me, 16th application, 16th pay. Oh, we'll still bring it up once in a while.
Alright, we got a motion and a second?
When does their,
Or was there a second?
It was.
You second? Okay, thank you.
when does their warranty?
So the warranty starts with substantial completion, which was, late in the fall at some point when we reached that point.
Okay.
So it started a year from then.
Just thinking of those sidewalk issues.
Yeah. They did come back and, they blasted that sidewalk that had a little bit of footprints in there and they re-sealed it, so we're gonna monitor it through next year and, see what it looks like in the spring, so.
Alright, any more discussion? We'll vote. Keel?
Yes.
Cleansor? Nelson?
Yes.
Brennan?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Monahan?
Yeah.
So that'll close out their contract, and again, the only work that'll be remaining on Nicholson Road is our work for record drawings, and we also are under contract to do a LOMAR survey as part of now that we've built the project, we have to go back to FEMA and reissue the flood maps through there. So you'll see us working on that this winter.
And there are 2 other items, kind of went through that need to be completed when we do this. We need to vacate the old section going to, Highway 38, so we need to vacate that. Part of our agreement with Rose Stumpy was they have a little portion of land on the west side that's by our sewer plant that's annexed into the city. They wanted that de-annexed, which we don't need, so we need to de-annex that. And then the language in Rose Stumpy's contract as well is that if there's any kind of crop damage, we need to pay out, I think, a one-time payment of $750 and then whatever crop damage is. And I don't think there is any crop damage.
They didn't plan it this year, so.
Yeah, I say didn't get plans, I don't think we have, but we'll have that one-time payment just for inconvenience and whatnot. We said we had that one. So those 3 items will be coming next month as well. So just let you know.
So when you say the vacated old road, for lack of a better term, I mean, that doesn't mean that they're down the line we might have to have some utilitarian type of purpose for that, like a bike path? I mean, does that mean that we cannot use that at that point?
We're keeping part of this section, understanding, right?
Where the
Because you still
bridge,
gotta
where the
go
old
to the
bridge is,
right.
we're still maintaining access to that, cause we have our point of discharge there for the outfall, that's the outfall for the plant.
Sure.
The lagoons right now, where we have to do some sampling out of there. So we're keeping that portion of the right of way and across the bridge. So it's actually a shorter portion from basically where that old bridge is, east to the highway is what we're vacating. But once you do vacate it, you give up rights to the property to the adjacent land.
So like I said, we talked about, you know, we'll be keeping that bridge part or whatnot, and we've talked about Sam possibly putting a bike trail in
Right.
at some point there.
That's why I
for
wanted to
that.
make sure that it was, cause that was kind of precursor way
Right.
back when.
So we'll still keep some of it, we're only vacating part of it.
Okay.
Those box culverts were designed for a path. to
They
one
were?
side.
Okay.
What's the purpose of vacating
Some kind of.
It was
I
part of
would
the
say it's part of the
agreement.
agreement, you know, so it doesn't maybe
With
break
Sam.
up Sam's
it?
land,
It was
saying,
part
you
of
know,
the agreement with Sam?
yeah. You
Gets us off the hook for any maintenance.
know, true.
Well, you don't need to vacate it to make it go away. You can make it go away and not vacate it.
Yeah, if I remember right, it was just a request of his that to vacate it.
Utilize it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright, anything else on Mitch's report? That's good, thank you. Alright, Craig?
Just a couple things that are changed since I wrote this report. The 2014 Ford is actually over getting rhino lined tomorrow. They're prepping it today and getting that done. The drainage areas are done for now. We're hoping it freezes a little bit more up there on Cressman's addition up there, so we can go in there and get the rest of those cattails knocked out of there.
Are you cleaning that whole area out?
We got as much as we could. He started to go in there and he just kept sliding down, so. But once it freezes. if we
But the
get-
project's to clear that whole drainage.
Get it cleaned out of there, get the cattail sprayed so it does drain and doesn't have backups in the future, so. Yep. And then, the only other thing is, we did get that scoreboard frame set and everything yesterday and cemented in, so that's done, so. That's all I got, unless somebody has any questions. I did put the traffic count stuff in there, so if it makes sense, usually the 85% is what they usually go off of, just for the numbers, so.
Charles, are you running fast?
Darn right. I think we should get that 25-mile-an-hour speed limit up there, but that's just me.
Alright,
85% of the traffic was 27 or less, so.
No, it's 21, no, yeah. 26 on top of it.
alright, if we got nothing else, we'll move on. Thank you, Craig.
Yep.
Alright. And Karen,
Yeah.
anything different from your report?
No.
No? Any questions on Karen's report? These have been the easiest finance officer reports for about a year straight. I hope you don't
It's
think
nice
we're
when things
avoiding
come
you.
out.
Like, we're not.
It's fine.
I just look for every time for questions and I'm like, hey, looks good.
That's a good thing.
It's a good thing you don't have questions on the finance.
Alright, we'll move on. Teresa, for your report.
I don't have really any changes either, just, talked to Mitch about updating our technical standards we talked last meeting about the grinding of the curbs. Craig brought up a couple other things maybe we should look at too, so probably next couple of weeks, we'll look at maybe doing some updates and presenting that to you guys next month, our recommendations on that. Otherwise, next meeting, we'll go over the CIP and, update on the wastewater treatment facility. And that's about what we got. And then I'll add this other agenda item as well.
I've got a question, kind of, Craig, Teresa. For my knowledge, I was approached regarding a water meter issue, about purchasing water meters. Is that when you build a house, you buy the water meter?
Yeah,
We don't have one now.
the only time you'll buy it a second time is if they tear the house out and the meter disappears. Then as long as any replacement, any updates of meters are done and paid through the city. So there's the upgrades that are going on right now with Rise and Read, that's all taken care of by the city cost, so homeowner buys the meter once.
So if it's a new construction or if they
Yep.
moved a new house in or what, if they don't have a meter, they'll have to buy a meter, but the ones we're going through, like Craig said, replacing right now, they
Right,
don't
so
have
if
to
I
buy
build a
those.
new house, I come down and buy a meter.
Yep,
Yep,
yep, your meter stays with the house that it was actually purchased in, it's supposed to.
Right, so there's a debate. I'm buying something that I don't own. I can't take the meter with me when I sell the house.
Correct,
Right?
correct.
you shouldn't.
Same conversation.
Just like the light fixture, you shouldn't, but, or the furnace, yeah, don't take the furnace.
Well, I know, but
Hot water heater's the same, you know.
I
It
mean,
should
that's
be
the
a
part
hard
I'm arguing
fixture.
with this is, I mean, why not just make it part of the connection fee? I mean, versus buying. When somebody thinks they're buying something, they think they own it.
Because for like they basically, with a new home construction, for example, I mean, that meter's $400 or $500 by the time it depends on if you go with a 1 inch, you know,
Well,
could
yeah,
be
so
less.
charge them $500 to hook it up.
There are different sizes too, so
People
there's
want
different
different meters.
prices.
Okay.
And there's different attachments depending where it's at, so you have different
What fittings we
couplers and
furnish,
fittings,
what
so it's always kind of specific, a different amount.
I have a question. How does Teresa know about the different fittings and the different styles and
Yeah,
sizes of what?
That's what I'm saying,
She's a rock star.
I'm starting to think you can do, I know you can do the finance officer job, and now I'm starting to think you can do Craig's job.
I can retire anytime.
How about that?
All right, so then I guess.
That's the
follow-up-
problem with that, is
Okay, so the
that,
follow-up to that is, how do they know that they gotta pay for it? Like, is it in the building permits? Is there some way we can address this so it doesn't become a blow-up?
I wonder if
In the
there's an
future.
ordinance of some sort or somewhere.
I think in the ordinance it does say you're responsible for your
I think it is.
water, but we can, clarify it, with that information I give out and just
Like
add
in
it to
the, when you get
there.
a building permit, maybe, can
Yep.
you get something that says that,
Yep,
so they know?
yep,
That's all.
yep. Yeah,
Well, no,
the
just
information
if you're-
packet I
if you're
give out,
building.
I can add that
Sure.
to it.
I mean, I don't build houses, but if I was a contractor in town, I'd probably know this.
Right. Yeah, most of the contractors
Yeah.
know it because
Yeah,
they've been building, but,
If I'm attempting to be my own general,
yeah,
it might catch me by surprise.
right. And yeah, so I can, yeah. add it.
So that's all. It's a story.
Alright. Anything else? This might be the time I just could cover this too quick under Teresa's report. Teresa and Jesse and I met yesterday to talk a little bit about the community engagement meeting that we had originally scheduled for January. We talked about it here in the council. Due to my scheduling conflicts, mostly, I haven't had a lot of time to plan that out. We started looking at timing and how we're gonna get people involved and how we're gonna make sure people are invited. And we decided we wanted to move forward with that community engagement meeting on February 13th, which is a Thursday in February. So it gives us enough time to be able to kind of get our plan together and then also get it in invites, and water meeting notices and all of those things. So probably going to be involving all of you in that. With that, kind of looking at an open house style community engagement meeting where we've got topics at certain tables about certain things, right? So
You said February?
February 13th.
I'll be there.
Won't be there?
I won't be there either.
I won't be there either.
Oh,
Oh, maybe that's a bad day.
I'm going to school on that Friday, and it's on Wednesday weekend, so I'm just.
well, that's good to know.
I'm fortunate like that weekend.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
That's why I'm like, we won't be around together.
So maybe we want to look at February.
Okay, maybe we'll look at different.
We'll look at a different date in February. We'll keep
I
that
don't know what
updated.
it is, but, yeah, because Wednesday's on the 7th.
Be in Jamaica? Nice. Wow.
I'm gonna be in Louisville, Kentucky. It's not very, exciting.
It's a good thing we don't have a council meeting in Rome.
Yeah, that's right.
I'll be around, I got nothing.
You gonna be around? You can host 3 days.
I'm the only one.
Alright, we'll look at that. We'll shoot an email out, look at dates and look for responses on that.
How's that?
Looks good.
Sorry.
That's okay.
February
That's all.
7th.
Alright, anything else on Teresa's report? Alright, we'll move down to new business. We got a review tax abatement request on parcel 58489. It's a veterans tax
Yes.
abatement.
So this is similar to one we had a couple months ago. It's a disabled veteran, so they are able to apply through the county for a tax abatement. And so with this property, they're asking for a tax abatement of $308.16, and the city needs to sign off on that.
So move to approve abatement 2019-0131.
Second. A motion and a second, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We've got review approve the 2020 fire protection service agreement. Our ongoing money to spend on that. Any discussion on that, or first or seconds? Anybody need more background on it? It's where we spend we basically give the fire department $85,000 for their building.
Yeah, and this is a,
80,000, sorry.
yeah, this is an annual agreement. We do it every year. The city pays the fire department $80,000 for fire protection services. They use that 80 for their loan payment, and it got enacted when the building was first erected.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2020 fire protection service agreement.
I'll second that.
It's identical verbiage, right?
The verbiage, just the date should change. We've clarified that, yeah.
Is there a reason this was set up as an annual agreement for?
Annual payment, isn't it?
It's an annual, yeah, payment.
I recall.
That 80,000, yeah, because it's an annual payment of 80,000. So you don't want to probably blanket it, because if something changes, there's verbiage in there about if they happen to sell the building or something happens with the loan, things can be changed. So I think that's why we review it annually.
I believe the city's got first right of refusal if the building's to be sold.
Right. Yeah, so there's.
Something along that
So it
verbiage.
just leaves it open in case, a situation would arise that we would need to address. Okay.
That's item 9.
I don't know, it's been a while since I read it.
Oh, it's item 9, it's right there, yeah. Good memory.
Other discussion?
There's a lot of bad conversation back then.
Alright, we'll vote. Nelson?
Yes.
Planzer?
Yes.
Teal?
Yes.
Brennan?
Yep.
Jones?
Yes.
And Meyer. The 2020 annual report contract from Quan Berglund and Post.
Is this the one that went up?
So,
Is this the audit?
so our audit went up quite a bit, and that was approved at last round. So this is for the annual report. It needs to be done every year, and this is mainly just doing our financials. This did go up a little bit, $300, but not the percentage that the audit did.
I make a motion to approve the contract with Quan Berglund and Post for our annual report.
Second.
Discussion? Vote. Monahan?
Yeah.
Jones?
Yes.
Brennan?
Yeah.
Teal?
Yes.
Planzer? And Nelson.
Yes.
Alright, next item up, we've got some planning and zoning members that are, terms are coming up. There are actually 3 of them. Matt King, Mark Anderson, and Brad Miles, all of their terms are expiring at the end of 2019. Spoke with all 3 of them since, and Brad Miles and Mark Anderson, both interested in running another term. Matt King said, I'll do it, I don't wanna leave you in a tight spot, but if you can find a different qualified candidate, he said, I've kinda run my course, I feel like I'm ready to bow out. So, so tonight, my plan is to reappoint Brad Miles and Mark Anderson. And between now and our January meeting, would like to take any suggestions, any people you got in mind, anything like that, for Matt Kane's position, and I just told him I'd be in contact with him, and we'd figure it out from there, so. It's okay to leave that open for a little while if we needed to, but I wanna get it filled, so. So with that, I appoint Brad Miles and Mark Anderson to 2-year terms on the planning and zoning.
Do we need a motion to approve that?
Yep, you.
I'll make a motion to approve those 2 appointments to planning and zoning.
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, and then the last item we got on our, under new business is proclamation. I'm gonna touch base with all of you about this a little bit. Francis Michael Fullenkamp was teacher up at the high school. He taught music for a number of years. He's been a member of the community since 1971. Actually, I had a student that reached out to me that's living down in Arizona at the time, and at the time he lives down there right now, and he's making the trip up. A lot of students over the years have been really impacted by the teaching of Mike Fullenkamp. He goes by Mike, and just the impact he's had on a number of people as they started to ask around the community has been huge. So they asked if we could consider a proclamation for Mike Fullenkamp Day, which is actually, I've got in here as April 13th of 2020, which April 13th was his birthday. Today is the visitation, right now is visitation going on for Mike, and tomorrow is his funeral. So if you don't know him from being a West Central teacher, you might know him from having all of the Cushmans and moped repair and also piano tuning. Yep. So he's done a number of different things. I'll quick read through the whereas statements we've got on the proclamation here, but Mike Fullenkamp has been a member of the Hartford community since 1971. He has been an active community member by serving in the Knights of Columbus, the Hartford JCs, South Dakota JCs, and as the director of the Elks Chorus for 10 years. Mike Fullenkamp has taught at the West Central School District for 29 years. Mike Fullenkamp has had a positive impact on the Hartford area and the students of the West Central School District since 1971. Mike Fullenkamp maintained a focus on students' lives, growth, and appreciation of the classics. This impact can be seen today throughout the music he taught, the pianos he repaired, and the mopeds he restored. I, Jeremy Menning, Mayor of the City of Hartford, South Dakota, do hereby proclaim April 13, 2020 as Mike Fullenkamp Day. Dated the 17th day of December 2018, fixed with the official seal of the City of Hartford.
Here, here.
So we'll get that signed and get that out to people that need that, so.
Nice to you.
Thanks for your input on all of that. As I asked around on that in the last couple of days, so. With that, any correspondence?
Did we send anything to Hometown Christmas?
Oh, good question.
I think
Probably
we did
not.
last week.
No?
I don't have any envelopes, but I don't know.
Would you like to champion a letter to Hometown Christmas?
Boy, it'd be the same words that I read written last year. Is there somebody else that wants to be a little more creative than me?
I like the word champion. I think Scott could champion that.
I
I think Scott should champion that.
Does anybody have a note card and an envelope to give to me?
Ran out.
Scott
You
is a
champion a
champion.
lot of different ones.
Is there some in front of you?
I might be able to help you out.
Say again?
Is there some in front of you? I thought
There might
I
be.
saw one the other day.
Thanks for volunteering, Scott.
It's, yeah. If there's one there, start at Mark Monahan, have him sign the bottom, and then I'll fill in the blanks. Don't go too far up, so I can champion.
Careful what you write.
It will be fine.
Alright, any other correspondence?
Are we gonna, sign it on the right side?
Thank you for bringing that up. Yep. That's nice.
Are we gonna let Mr. Brown talk? He's been sitting here.
Well, actually, we're gonna move into executive session under, legal and personnel. We got some contracts probably to discuss in there also. So with that, we'll look for a motion, and we'd like to have Mr. Brown and McAnallis be our guests in the executive session.
So move. Perfect. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. That's what I did.
I make a motion that we present each year-round city employee with $200 in Hartford bucks as a Christmas bonus.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Motion to adjourn?
No.
Now we have a bigger motion.
Oh, geez, sorry.
I move that we spend up to $800,000 on Project Blackbird. Not to exceed $800,000 on Project Blackbird.
Second.
Motion and second.
Is that a good enough motion to,
I guess that's it.
Okay, that will vote. Ryan?
yeah.
Jones?
Yes.
Brennan?
Yep.
Keel?
Yes.
Lanzer?
Yeah.
Nelson?
Yep.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nobody opposed.
Get all excited about the $200 bonus.